If you are a person who goes on TV, specifically to appear on the Fox News channel, your on-air, on Fox musings about this president, they very rarely come out sounding like this.
Where he really lost me was when he was saying and objecting, saying there were some fine people in that protest in Charlottesville. They were chanting things like, Jews will not replace us. There's nothing good about that.
It's honestly crazy for me to have to comment on this right now because I'm still in the phase where I'm wondering if it was actually real life, what I just watched. It was one of the biggest messes that I've ever seen. I can't believe it happened. A gathering full of white supremacist Nazis doesn't have good people in it. Those are all bad people, period. And the fact that that's controversial makes me want to, I don't know if I should just like laugh. So I have like too much eye makeup on to start crying right now. It's disgusting.
I don't usually play highlight reels from cable news shows, but that happening on the Fox News channel today gives you a little bit of a sense of how not normal today was for this president. I mean, if that's what's happening on the Fox News channel, you can guess how strong the criticism was from, like, you know, the Democratic leadership in Congress. This caught my eye. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy made this statement this afternoon, quote, "Just stopped on roadside to read president's remarks. I nearly threw up. An American president offering a defense of white supremacists. My God." That was kind of the flavor from the Democratic side today. Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, did not call out the president by name in his statement today, but he did say this, quote, "We must be clear, white supremacy is repulsive. This bigotry is counter to all this country stands for. There can be no moral ambiguity." Passive voice. Republican Senator Jerry Moran from Kansas said this, "No one, especially the President of the United States, should ever tolerate white supremacy, bigotry, and racism." I'm stronger. The Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, has so far not said anything. Steve Schmidt worked in the George W. Bush administration. He was a senior advisor to the McCain presidential campaign. Steve is not shy in general. He was particularly not shy in his response to the president's remarks today. As soon as the president finished speaking, Steve posted this, quote, "A completely unhinged performance by the most powerful man in the world. Quote, that performance will send shivers down the spine of every allied leader. It will inspire every adversary. Everyone sees the unfitness." Joining us now is Republican strategist Steve Schmidt. Steve, thank you for making time to be here tonight. It's really nice to see you.
Good to see you, Rachel. Thank you.
So you have been critical and outspoken about this president on a number of occasions in the past. Can I ask you, just reading your response today, I wanted to know if you see this as kind of a marginal advance in what you see as offensive behavior by this president, or do you see this as something qualitatively different, a big leap?
I would say qualitatively different. The moral obtusity and the psychological fragility on display at that disgraceful news conference today are bone-chilling. This is a seminal moment in the history of the Republican Party. The statements by the Speaker of the House are not sufficient to the moment. There could be no equivocation here. The moral failure is complete, and it's almost irredeemable. The Republican leaders have to condemn the president for this false equivocation directly by name. They have to censure him, or they risk sliding into a moral abyss with him. Now, optimistically, I think people of good faith in this country, whether they be liberal Democrats or conservative Republicans, I think the righteous anger of the American people over this incident and watching in 2017 Nazis, young men largely, many of them looking privileged, venerating the most evil regime and the most evil leader in the history of humanity, that unleashed a level of human misery and suffering that, in the words of General Eisenhower upon seeing his first concentration camp, described the images as beggaring the imagination. And as we approach the end of a human lifetime for the last of the survivors of the people who were in those concentration camps and the last of the men who stormed the beaches in Normandy to crush Nazi tyranny, what a disgrace. What a disgrace today.
Steve, what you're describing in terms of this being a seminal moment, a turning point for the Republican Party, can I ask you, just when you talk to your fellow Republicans. You spent a lifetime in Republican politics. Are these conversations happening behind closed doors? Are they happening privately, and it's just elected Republicans feel like, for the most part, they can't speak their mind? Or are Republicans who you know genuinely conflicted and don't know how much they should still support this president, despite concerns they may have?
Look, most politicians have a finely tuned instinct for self-preservation, and truthfully, most issues that we debate about, whether they be the size of spending bills or the rate of tax reduction, probably aren't worth losing your political career over. Rarely does an issue of such moral clarity come along. And so Republicans who privately shiver, who say that he's unfit, who say that he's erratic, who are deeply disturbed by the rhetoric, who think he lacks all the qualities of character necessary to be commander-in-chief, or deeply worried about his capacities for judgment in the face of a nuclear crisis that we saw, for example, with North Korea last week. What this issue does is force a moral reckoning. The Republican Party, the party of Abraham Lincoln, a party that has done much good for the advancement of human freedom in the world, and despite the Southern strategy and despite the whistles and the dog whistles that have played out by too many Republican campaigns over the last 40 years, this is something different. This requires a clear, unequivocal repudiation of the president's moral failure. We can't brook this as a country. You have neo-Nazis marching, doing violence, doing murder in broad daylight in a historic college town on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, a torchlight parade reminiscent of the SA. And let's be clear, when we look at the celebratory statements of Nazis like Richard Spencer, we should stop using the alt-right label. They're celebrating the president's comments today. Needs to be repudiated by every single Republican elected official by name.
Republican strategist Steve Schmidt. Steve, it's always great to have you here. I craved your clarity today, watching other people try to struggle
Thank you, Rachel.
to respond to this. Thanks. Appreciate it, my friend. All right. Still ahead, something totally different. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.